Have you ever made a decision in anger that changed your life forever? Rebecca Matthews stood in her corner office on the 42nd floor, staring at the termination papers she had just signed, feeling a strange hollow sensation in her chest. She had just fired Daniel Cooper, a single father who had been late to work 3 times that month. She told herself it was about maintaining standards, about running a tight ship, about showing no favoritism. But in exactly 17 minutes, her entire world would shatter when she heard her 7-year-old daughter Emma call that same man her hero. What Rebecca discovered next would force her to confront everything she thought she knew about success, sacrifice, and what truly matters in life. Before we begin this powerful story, if you believe in second chances and the power of compassion, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories that remind us all of our shared humanity. Now, let's dive into Rebecca's journey of transformation, ***. Rebecca Matthews had built her empire from nothing. At 42 years old, she was the CEO of Matthews Marketing Solutions, a company she had started in her garage 12 years ago with nothing but a laptop, fierce determination, and an unshakable belief that she could succeed where others had failed. The company now occupied 3 floors of the prestigious Madison Tower in downtown Chicago, employed over 200 people, and generated revenue in the hundreds of millions. Her success story had been featured in Forbes, Business Insider, and the Wall Street Journal. She was the woman who had it all, or so everyone thought. The glossy magazine photos showed her in designer suits, standing confidently in her sleek office, the Chicago skyline glittering behind her. They showed power, control, success. What they didn't show were the divorce papers from 3 years ago, when her husband Robert had left her, claiming she loved her business more than her family. They didn't show the nanny raising her daughter Emma because Rebecca often worked until 9 or 10 at night. They didn't show the parents' meetings she missed, the school plays she couldn't attend, or the birthday parties she had to skip because of client emergencies. But Rebecca had made peace with her choices. Or at least, she told herself she had. Success required sacrifice. Her own mother had been a housewife who had depended entirely on Rebecca's father, and when he left, her mother had been helpless, broke, and broken. Rebecca had sworn at age 15 that she would never be dependent on anyone. She would build her own security, her own power, her own legacy. And she had done exactly that. Rebecca ran her company the way she ran her life, with precision, high standards, and absolutely no room for excuses. She believed in meritocracy, in results, in accountability. If you worked hard and delivered, you would be rewarded handsomely. Her employees received some of the best salaries in the industry, comprehensive benefits, and generous bonuses. But the flip side was equally clear. If you couldn't meet the standards, you didn't belong at Matthews Marketing Solutions. Rebecca had zero tolerance for tardiness, mediocrity, or excuses. She had built her company on the principle that excellence was non-negotiable. This philosophy had served her well. Her company had one of the lowest turnover rates in the industry because she paid well and expected much. The people who worked for her were the best in the business, and they knew it. Which is why Daniel Cooper's recent behavior had been so disappointing. Daniel had joined Matthews Marketing Solutions 6 months ago as a junior graphic designer. He had come highly recommended from his previous employer and his portfolio had been impressive. In his interview, he had been articulate, creative, and clearly talented. Rebecca herself had approved his hiring, seeing potential in the young man's innovative approach to visual storytelling. For the first 4 months, Daniel had been exemplary. His work was consistently excellent, often exceeding expectations. He had a natural eye for design and an intuitive understanding of how to translate complex marketing concepts into compelling visual narratives. Several clients had specifically praised his work, and Rebecca had made a mental note that Daniel Cooper was someone to watch, someone with real potential to rise within the company. But then, something had changed. About 6 weeks ago, Daniel had started arriving late. The first time, it was 15 minutes. Rebecca's assistant had noted it, as was protocol, but no action was taken. Everyone was entitled to occasional delays, traffic happened, emergencies occurred. The second time, a week later, it was 20 minutes. Daniel had looked flustered and apologetic when he rushed in, but he had gone straight to his desk and worked through his lunch break to make up the time. Rebecca's assistant had documented it and sent Daniel a written warning, as per company policy. Then it happened again. And again. Over the next few weeks, Daniel was late 4 more times, ranging from 10 minutes to half an hour. Each time, he looked increasingly exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and a haunted expression that spoke of burdens Rebecca didn't care to know about. After the 4th incident of tardiness, Rebecca's HR director, Patricia Connors, had called Daniel in for a formal meeting. Patricia had been with Rebecca since the early days of the company and shared her philosophy completely. She had issued Daniel a final written warning, making it absolutely clear that one more late arrival would result in immediate termination, regardless of the reason. "I understand you might be going through something personal," Patricia had told him, her voice professional but not unkind, "but we have standards here. Everyone else manages to arrive on time. We need you to do the same or we'll have to let you go." Daniel had nodded, his jaw tight, his hands clasped together so firmly his knuckles were white. "I understand," he had said quietly. "It won't happen again." But it did happen again. This morning, Daniel had arrived 35 minutes late. He had practically run through the office doors, his coat half on, his bag slung awkwardly over his shoulder, looking like a man who had been through a war. But rules were rules. Patricia had come to Rebecca's office within minutes, Daniel's file in hand, her expression professionally neutral but tinged with something that might have been regret. "Daniel Cooper was late again," she had said. 35 minutes this time. "As per our final warning, we need to terminate his employment effective immediately." Rebecca had looked up from the quarterly reports she was reviewing. "Any explanation this time?" He didn't offer one. Just apologized and went to his desk. Rebecca had felt a flicker of something, some emotion she couldn't quite name. Disappointment, perhaps. She had genuinely thought Daniel had potential. But potential meant nothing without discipline, without reliability. "Prepare the termination paperwork," Rebecca had said, returning her attention to the reports. "Have security escort him out after he collects his personal belongings. Process his final paycheck for Friday. You don't want to speak with him yourself?" Patricia had asked, and there was a subtle note in her voice that Rebecca couldn't quite read. Rebecca had looked up sharply. "Is there some reason I should?" Patricia had hesitated, then shook her head. "No, I suppose not. I'll handle it." But an hour later, Patricia was back in Rebecca's office, and this time her expression was definitely troubled. "Rebecca, I think you should reconsider the Cooper termination." Rebecca had sat back in her chair, surprised. Patricia had never questioned one of her decisions before. "Why?" "I just learned from one of the other designers that Daniel is a single father. Apparently, his wife died about 2 months ago. He has a young son he's raising alone." Rebecca had felt that flicker of emotion again, stronger this time. Sympathy? Pity? But she had pushed it down, keeping her expression neutral. "That's tragic, truly. But it doesn't change the fact that he's violated company policy repeatedly after multiple warnings. If I make an exception for him, what message does that send to everyone else? That the rules don't matter? That you can ignore policy if you have a sad enough story?" "I understand your point," Patricia had said carefully, "but perhaps in this case, some compassion." "Compassion doesn't run a successful company, Patricia," Rebecca had cut her off, her voice firm. "Clear standards and consistent enforcement do. We gave him multiple warnings. He knew the consequences. I'm sympathetic to his situation, truly, but I can't run a business on sympathy." Patricia had studied her for a long moment, and Rebecca had seen something in her old friend's eyes that looked almost like disappointment. But Patricia had simply nodded. I'll proceed with the termination. After Patricia left, Rebecca had sat alone in her office, staring out at the Chicago skyline without really seeing it. She had felt unsettled in a way she couldn't quite explain. She kept thinking about Daniel's face this morning, that exhausted, haunted look. She thought about how he had lost his wife just 2 months ago. How he was raising a child alone. But then she had thought about her own struggles as a single mother, and how she still managed to arrive on time every day, to meet her obligations, to maintain her standards. Life was hard for everyone. Tragedy struck everyone eventually. The question was whether you let it destroy you or whether you rose above it. Rebecca had built her entire life on the principle of rising above, of refusing to let circumstances defeat her. She expected the same from the people who worked for her. She had signed the termination papers with a firm hand, refusing to second-guess herself. That had been 2 hours ago. Now, at 4:47 p.m., Rebecca was packing up her briefcase to leave early for once. Emma had a school event tonight, some kind of presentation in her second-grade classroom, and for once, Rebecca had cleared her schedule to attend. She had been trying, especially since the divorce, to be more present in Emma's life, even though it was hard to balance the demands of running a company with the needs of a 7-year-old child. Emma was staying with the nanny, Mrs. Chen, today as usual. Rebecca would pick her up at home, and they would go to the school together. It would be a rare evening of mother-daughter time, and Rebecca was looking forward to it, though she would never have used such a sentimental term. Her phone rang just as she was about to leave. It was Mrs. Chen. "Mrs. Matthews? I'm so sorry to bother you at work." "It's fine, Mrs. Chen." "What is it?" "It's Emma. She's not home." Rebecca's blood went cold. "What do you mean she's not home? You were supposed to pick her up from school at 3:30. "I did pick her up, ma'am." Mrs. Chen's voice was distressed, on the verge of tears. "We came home, and she asked if she could play with Lily next door for an hour before the school event tonight. I said yes. Lily's mother, Mrs. Foster, was right there. But I just went to get Emma, and Mrs. Foster said Emma left 20 minutes ago. She said she was going to the park to find someone. Mrs. Foster thought I knew about it." "Oh, Mrs. Matthews, I'm so sorry. I've been calling Emma's phone but she's not answering." The park. Rebecca's mind raced. There was a large park 3 blocks from their house, a place Emma loved. But it was also next to a busy street, and in October, it was starting to get dark earlier each day. "Call the police," Rebecca said, her voice sharp with fear. "Report her missing. I'm leaving now. I'll be home in 20 minutes. Rebecca grabbed her bag and ran from her office, not bothering to explain to her assistant where she was going. In the elevator, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely press the button for the parking garage. Her mind filled with terrible possibilities, all the horrible things that could happen to a 7-year-old girl alone in the city as evening approached. Emma was her whole world. Rebecca might not always show it in the ways other mothers did, might not always be there for every small moment, but Emma was everything to her. The thought of something happening to her daughter made Rebecca's chest constrict with a fear so primal it was almost paralyzing. She forced herself to breathe, to think clearly. Emma was a smart girl. She wouldn't go off with strangers. She must have had a reason for going to the park. But what reason could possibly be important enough to worry her mother and nanny like this? The drive home normally took 30 minutes in evening traffic, but Rebecca made it in 18, breaking every speed limit and running at least 2 yellow lights that were probably already red. She didn't care. Nothing mattered except finding Emma. When she screeched to a stop in front of their brownstone, there was already a police car parked outside. Mrs. Chen was on the front steps, wringing her hands and talking to 2 officers. When she saw Rebecca, her face crumpled. "Mrs. Matthews, I'm so sorry, I never should have." "Not now," Rebecca cut her off, not unkindly but with no time for apologies. She turned to the officers. My daughter is missing. 7 years old, blonde hair, brown eyes, she was wearing a pink jacket and jeans. She told a neighbor she was going to the park to find someone. Ma'am, we have officers heading to the park right now, one of the policemen said. We're going to find her. Can you think of anyone she might have been going to meet? A friend? A family member? Rebecca shook her head, frustrated. I don't know. I don't. She stopped abruptly, her phone buzzing in her hand. Unknown number. Her heart leapt. Hello? Mom? Emma's voice, small and scared, and Rebecca's knees nearly buckled with relief. Emma. Baby, where are you? Are you okay? I'm okay, Mom. I'm sorry I scared you. I needed to help someone. Help someone? Emma, where are you? I'm at the park. With Mr. Cooper. Rebecca froze. Mr. Cooper? Yeah, you know, Daniel Cooper. From your work. He's Zach's dad. Zach is in my class. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Rebecca's mind struggled to process this information. Daniel Cooper. The man she had fired just hours ago. The single father whose wife had died. He had a son. Zach. In Emma's class. Emma, put Mr. Cooper on the phone right now. There was a rustling sound, then a man's voice, hesitant and exhausted. Mrs. Matthews? What the hell are you doing with my daughter? Rebecca's voice came out harsh, driven by fear that was only now beginning to transform into anger. Mrs. Matthews, please, it's not what you think. Emma is completely safe, I promise you. She came to the park looking for me. My son Zach told her I was having a hard day and she wanted to help. I tried to call you immediately but I don't have your personal number. I was just about to walk her home. Stay exactly where you are, Rebecca commanded. I'm coming to get her right now. She hung up and looked at the police officers. She's at the park. She's safe. I'm going to get her now. The officers exchanged glances. Ma'am, do you know this person? Should we accompany you? No, Rebecca said, though she wasn't entirely sure why she was so certain. I know him. He worked for me. He's the father of one of Emma's classmates. She started walking toward the park at a near run, her heart still pounding. The park was 3 blocks away, and Rebecca covered the distance in minutes, driven by a desperate need to see her daughter, to hold her, to confirm with her own eyes that Emma was truly safe. The park was in that twilight state between day and evening, the sky turning purple and gold, the streetlights beginning to flicker on. Rebecca scanned the playground area frantically, and then she saw them. On a bench near the swing set sat Daniel Cooper, looking even more exhausted than he had this morning, if that was possible. Next to him was a small boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with dark hair and Daniel's same brown eyes. The boy was leaning against his father, and even from a distance, Rebecca could see he had been crying. And standing in front of the bench, talking animatedly to both of them, was Emma. Her daughter's hands were gesturing expressively, her face bright and earnest, and she appeared to be in the middle of telling some kind of story.